Hello, true crimerers. Yeah, another compilation. You're getting 6 compilation videos between yesterday and today. So I can start my new posting schedule, new one, fresh tomorrow, Sunday. Yeah, the 15th of January, 2023, in case you're watching this in the future and I failed miserably already. So this video is going to be about 45 minutes long or so, and it only consists of 9 cases. But these are from like the very beginning. These are like my origin story videos. These are all way back before I got 3-minute videos. So I had to do part 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s and whatnots, and sometimes more, just to get the whole story out, because I only had 60 seconds per video. So yeah, you're going to see like part 1, part 2 written. I'm going to try to cut out where I say part 1 and 2 if I can. I may not be able to on all of them because of the way I say things. So I don't know. If not, sorry. If I do, yay. But without further ado, here is 9 more cases. And these are just random cases. These are, there's no like theme to these. So viewer discretion is advised. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Facebook. The link is in my link tree below in the description. Thank you very much. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm gonna stand him. The disappearance of Barbara Miller. On July 1st, 1989, 30-year-old Barbara Miller attended a wedding of a friend of hers. Plenty of people saw her at the wedding socializing. When the ceremony was over, Barb went back to the house that she shared with her boyfriend, Mike Egan. Police know she was there because there were items from the wedding inside the house. And this would have been the very late evening hours of July 1st. The wedding reception had already begun and Barb was expected to come back. But sadly, she never made it. In fact, no one has ever seen her again. The last person who claims to see her alive is her boyfriend, Joseph Walter Mike Egan. It's quite a fucking name, Jesus. However, he doesn't seem to be clear about what the time was that he last saw her. He didn't even report her missing until 3 days later, on July 5th. Egan used to be a police detective who retired, because back in 1983 he was facing extortion charges. In fact, he was convicted of it. Shortly before her disappearance, it was reported that Barbara was actually acting as a police informant when it came to drug activity. Just 2 weeks before her disappearance, she had reported to police that she was receiving very threatening letters, which she handed to the police. What was unusual is at one point, she basically just very suddenly said, all right, you know what, never mind, I'm not being threatened anymore, it's over with. She told the cops to just forget about the whole thing. And then she actually asked for the threatening letters back. After her disappearance, a $5,000 reward was offered, but no one ever came forward. Fast forward all the way to 2002, they received information that Barb's body might be in a mine shaft, which they searched but turned up nothing. On October 10th, 2002, a judge officially declared Barbara as dead, even though obviously there had been no body found yet. A primary suspect the entire time has always been her boyfriend, Mike Egan. So like I said at the end of part 2, Barb Miller's boyfriend, Mike Egan, was a primary suspect pretty much this entire time. They shared a home together in Pennsylvania, and reportedly they got into a big fight with regard to the wedding she attended. She wanted to go to the wedding alone. He didn't want her to go at all. I cannot find any photos of Mike Egan at all, by the way. But since the very beginning, he has been their chief suspect, and he has never been charged or anything like that with her murder or anything. The reason the police know about this big fight they had was because Barb Miller actually had a 14-year-old son, and he's the one who told the police about this big fight. Her son noticed that the morning after the wedding, Mike Egan was actually driving her vehicle. Her son even noticed that there was yellow clay on the tires of her vehicle, which police said would indicate concrete work. Not to mention the fact that he waited 3 days to report her as missing at all. So given the information that Barbara's 14-year-old son told the police, they firmly believe that Mike Egan, her boyfriend, killed Barb, dismembered her body by using a wood chipper that he had, and then he buried her remains in the walls of their home using cement. Apparently, well after moving out of the home, Mike Egan told people he would drive past his house, while high on cocaine, of course, to, quote, visit his old lady, When a new police detective looked into the case, he saw that there was a tip where someone, in fact, claimed that Mike Egan said he buried her body in the walls of their home. The house's current owners let investigators go in the house, where in the basement they found some very poorly mixed concrete flooring. They brought in, I think, 9 different cadaver dogs, and every single one of them picked up on human remains somewhere in that home. So by the end of part 4, we were talking about how police have contacted the recent owners of the home, cadaver dogs were let in the house, they all picked up on human remains somewhere in that home. So they brought in a team of people, construction people, and they removed a slab of concrete from the home. And it partially confirmed their suspicions. Within this mixed concrete, which was added into the house after its construction, there were wood chips in it. They believe that Mike Egan put Barb Miller through a wood chipper and then buried her bodies with cement in the home. And here's another shot of that. But police also said they found a barrel in a pond near the home, but they have not revealed what they found inside that barrel. Now, I read in an article that they said they found a female bone in one of these concrete slabs, but I can't find anything to actually verify this. Barb Miller's friends and family, including her now 40-year-old son, are still actively trying to find anything they can on where she might be, or any tips, any leads on the case itself. They have not given up, and they never will. One last theory about what happened to Barb. A former police chief who worked on the case believed that Barb Miller's disappearance/death is somehow linked to the 1986 murder of Ricky Wolf. He was shot and killed execution style. Apparently the police have, this is Ricky Wolf by the way, apparently the police have information that somehow Barb has information on his murder and that the man who was convicted of killing Wolf, Scott Schaefer here, is innocent and she somehow had evidence of this innocence. But again, nothing's been verified or confirmed. And to this day, Barb Miller has still not been found and her case remains unsolved. Hello, true crimerers. This will be the case of Brandon Lawson. What you're about to hear is the 911 call he made, and then on part 2, we'll get into the details.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. You gotta take the bitch to the woods. Quick learning. And when I talk is home. Alright, so you're in his home. That's the first guy. You need the ambulance? Yeah. No, I need the call.
On August 8th, 2013, Brandon Lawson returned to his home in Texas, a home that he shared with his girlfriend. According to his girlfriend, Ladessa Lofton, somewhere between 10:45 p.m. and 11:15 or so that night, they got into an argument because Brandon hadn't returned home the night before. She was pissed because she assumed he was doing drugs, even though he is supposed to have been clean and sober for the past 6 months. Somewhere around 11:30 p.m. that night, Brandon called his dad, who lived about 3 hours away. And he said, "Hey, Pops, I'm on my way to your house right now. Got into a fight and I need to come over." Ladessa says he left their house, at 11:54 p.m. that night on August 8th, 2013. And he was driving his silver Ford F-150. About 12:30 in the morning, now on August 9th, Brandon called his brother Kyle and said, "Hey bro, I ran out of gas. I'm over on Route 277. So during that first 12:30 a.m. call that Brandon made to his brother after he said he ran out of gas, Kyle claims that Brandon said that he was being chased out of town by 3 expletives. We don't know the word he used. And I guess Kyle would later clarify that what he meant was Mexicans in the neighborhood. Kyle, knowing Brandon's history of drug use, asked him plainly, "Dude, are you hallucinating right now? Are you high? Are you on something?" Brandon swore up and down that no, he wasn't. So Kyle woke up his wife, woke up their 4-year-old daughter, packed him in the car, and went to go meet Brandon with a gas can. During the drive, Kyle said Brandon and him tried to have phone conversations, but the phone calls kept dropping. I guess wherever Brandon was at the time, the cell phone reception was really, really horrible. At around 12:50 a.m., Brandon had made the 911 call that I played in the first episode of this, which was a really incoherent call. And I'll go ahead and let you read this missing persons thing if you want. So like I said, Brandon's phone call to 911 was very discombobulated. It kept cutting in and out. Very hard to hear what's being said. Now, the next image I'm going to show you is a satellite image of where his truck was found. So just a few minutes after Brandon's 911 call ended, a trucker called 911 to say that he found Brandon Lawson's truck in a very hazardous location. Shortly after 1 a.m., sheriff's deputies arrived to this location, but Brandon was nowhere to be found. Around 1:10 a.m., Brandon's brother Kyle had arrived at the truck as well. Now, Kyle alleges he spoke to Brandon on the phone at 1:18 a.m., who said he was very much out of breath. He said he was bleeding. Brandon said, "I can see you, Kyle. I'm right here." But no one could see Brandon. Brandon did have an active arrest warrant, so it's possible he saw a deputy and got scared. So this is the area what it looked like where his truck was found. Now, Brandon's brother Kyle, when he arrived at the truck around 1:10 in the morning, but basically Brandon never showed up, Kyle left the can full of gas in the back of Brandon's truck. He came back at 5 a.m., the truck and the gas can were still there, and then the sheriff's department had the truck towed at 8 a.m. This is another look at the area. Apparently somewhere off in this area is where Brandon would have been, or claimed he was, standing when he was talking to Kyle, and said, "I can see you." But the sheriff's department organized a search party. They searched for hours and hours and hours all around this area, and they never found Brandon, dead or alive. His credit cards, debit cards have never been used since. His cell phone hasn't been used since. And August 9th of 2021, he will have been missing for 8 years, if you have information. Hello, true crimerers. There is an official update on a very popular case, and it is a sobering update at that. A long while back, I made videos detailing the strange disappearance of Brandon Lawson, but they never found Brandon that night. They never found Brandon ever. He seemed to have just vanished into the atmosphere. Nearly 8.5 years later, today on February 4th, 2022, searchers looking in the area that Brandon originally disappeared, they found articles of clothing that matched the ones he was wearing that night. Police collected it as evidence, and then they found human remains. I don't know the proximity to how exactly close they were to his original where the truck was found, and I know they searched that area over and over and over again, but it's a huge area where they found him, so I'm sure it was easy to miss all the other times. They have not confirmed for a fact that it's the remains of Brandon Lawson because the DNA is still pending. But even the family has said, we truly believe that that is his remains. His cause of death obviously has not been revealed, so it's not known if it was some sort of accident, if it was anything drug-related, or if it was homicide. We don't know. But he has likely been found. Stay tuned. This is the case of Kenneka Jenkins. On the evening of Friday, September 8th, 2017, Kenneka Jenkins had entered the Crown Plaza Hotel in Chicago to attend a party with some friends. The party was in room 926 and started around 11 p.m. Several of the partygoers had noted that Kenneka was not acting like herself. She had been seen swaying back and forth. She would get up and dance, only to then stop dancing and go into a corner and look very sad. She was seen drinking cognac at the party, but was also observed not partaking in the marijuana that was being passed around. She had at some point left the party and was seen around the front desk around 3:20 a.m., but her friends couldn't find her at all the rest of the evening. They told her mother came to the hotel around 5:30 a.m., started knocking on doors, searched the hotel top to bottom and couldn't find her anywhere. She would be found 21 hours later, dead inside a freezer. This video, I'm going to be showing the CCTV footage that the police released of her movements around the hotel. So the CCTV cameras at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Chicago, they are motion activated, so these only activated once she walked into frame. The kitchen she walked into is actually an unused kitchen. However, the freezer she was found in, which is actually just off of camera, was turned on. And I guess that's because some sort of catering company or other food company paid to have that freezer still going. According to the Rosemont police, the camera was never activated after it turned off when she walked by. Here's a trigger warning. I'm going to show photos of her body. They're not gory or bloody by any means, but it is still a dead body. So 18 plus only, explicit images ahead. She was discovered lying on her side with one of her shoes off, and her other shoe was found a ways away from her. And her foot had a small cut on it, but the Cook County medical examiner would say that there was no foul play and her death was an accident. So the Cook County medical examiner ruled it was an accident. They revealed her blood alcohol level was at 0.112, which would certainly explain all of the fumbling around the hotel. They also found traces of topiramate, which is a medication that's used to treat like migraines, but she wasn't actually prescribed it. And the alcohol and the topiramate, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong, they actually will hasten the effects of hypothermia. And the medical examiner found lesions around her stomach that again would indicate hypothermia. Some people have suggested that there were signs of an assault, but the police have never confirmed that. The inside of the freezer has a normal circular white knob there, which she had full access to. The door was not locked, so she could have left the freezer, which gives credence to some people's beliefs that she was assaulted and left to die in the freezer. But there's no proof of this. The family sued the hotel for $50 million, which I don't know the outcome. What do you guys think? Oh, this is the case of Richard Uffelman. Falafel? Ukulele? Hufflepuff. Richard Uffelman. On August 29th, 1989, in Machias, Maine? This is off to a bad start. Tensions finally burst after a very lengthy spat with his neighbors, Michael and Florence Phillips. Those are easy names. The neighbors basically had this Hatfield and McCoy's type thing going on. Each side would do things to piss the other off, and Uffle-Ding-Dong up here, well, he finally just snapped. There was already indications that this man was off his rocker nuts. He said in court that he was set up to be murdered. Not the case. On that fateful August 29th evening, the Phillips couple took a walk, and that is when Richard Uffelman and his two young boys opened fire on the couple, murdering them both. Richard here was quickly apprehended after he opened fire on his neighbors, Michael and Florence Phillips. Him and his two very young boys fired 20 to 25 shots from the porch of their gigantic home towards and unfortunately into the Phillipses. When the police apprehended him, they found a stockpile of weapons in his home, including some that were rigged to go off, like a trap in case someone entered. He was even pointing a gun directly at one of the officers when they went in to arrest him. He obviously stood down. The two sons were never charged with anything. They were also considered essentially victims of Richard, and they were put into foster care. Richard tried to plead insanity in his murder trial, but the judge was like, nah, dog. He was found guilty by a jury and sentenced to life plus 50 years for the two murders. Trigger warning, in this video I'm going to show the actual video clip of when Michael and Florence Phillips were shot and killed by Richard Richard Uffelman. You don't see them get hit, but you see the shooting. The Phillips had set up a video camera in their kitchen pointing towards his house to catch anything crazy he does. Little did they know it would capture their actual murder. So please, 18 plus, explicit content ahead.
I met him. Mike invited me to do some serial killer / true crime stuff on his account, so here I am, and here we go. This is Dennis Nilsen, also known as the Kindly Killer. Obviously shops at the Serial Killer Glasses store, and a little bit of a lesser-known serial killer, especially here in the States, because he's from London, but his stuff is so fucked up that he did an interview on TV, and they banned it from TV.
Well, I'm going to have to deal with the smell problem. And I thought, what would cause the smell more than anything else? And I came to the conclusion It was the innards.
He killed from 1978 to 1983 an estimated 15 boys in their teens and 20s, 12 of which were at this house right here. And he killed his last 3 victims in the top floor apartment of this house. His first and youngest victim was only 14 years old. His preferred method was strangulation, usually with a necktie, and if that didn't work or it just caused them to pass out, he would then drown them in a bucket or in a sink. Guess what he did with them after that? Stop there with the bodies. Here's what he did with them. This is part 2 of my series on Dennis Nilsen. Tap the follow if you're totally into this stuff. After he was done strangling and or drowning his first 12 victims, his ritual was washing the body in the bath, dressing it usually in a V-neck t-shirt, positioning it in a chair so we could watch TV with it, or laying it in his bed and he slept with it, or did other unspeakable acts to the victim, and then he would wrap it in plastic and store the body underneath the floorboards of his first floor apartment. He would keep those bodies under there for weeks or months and perform that same ritual over and over again. So eventually he got a little cozy on those floorboards, so he would dissect the bodies, throw them in a pile in his backyard, and have a good old-fashioned neighborhood bonfire. And yep, kid-friendly. And he covered up the smell by burning a tire along with the bodies. But all good body burnings must come to an end. He needed to move to this place where he made a stupid mistake and got caught. He had his last human barbecue the day before he moved because his landlord needed him out, not for any reasons involving murder or dead bodies, just because the landlord wanted to redecorate. And then he acted like a damn amateur by getting the top floor of this apartment where the storage space underneath the floorboards was not as plentiful. So Dennis did what any of us would do when faced with the issue of lack of under-floorboard storage. He got this beautiful armoire. They really are just like us. Except where ours probably has garbage bags full of clothes we've intended to donate for years, his has garbage bags full of dissected human remains. And I guess he didn't think it was a good idea to leave the heads and hands in those garbage bags, so he boiled as much of the flesh off as he could, and he flushed them down this toilet. And apparently 3 is the magic number when you're flushing heads and hands down the toilet. So one day Dennis called his landlord and said, I can't get my toilet unclogged. So landlord said, all right, I'll send a plumber. And you guessed it, he found flesh and bones, contacted the authorities, and posed for this picture. So when the police officer first showed up and said, yo, Dennis, we found human remains inside of your pipes, Dennis was like, oh, what? But then the police officer was a badass and said, and Dennis was apprehended. So he said that he took 15 lives, but he also said he couldn't even remember some of them. There was one guy who he didn't even remember killing. He just woke up in the morning and there was a dead body next to him. They were able to confirm 12 of the bodies, and he was charged and convicted of 6 murders. Now, 3 of his victims did survive. One of them, Dennis Nilsen, actually revived when he changed his mind about killing him. He spent the rest of his life in jail, died in 2018 of natural causes, but in excruciating pain.
Hello, my true crimerers. This is the case of Kendrick Johnson. On the afternoon of January 11, 2013, a group of students entered the gymnasium of Lowndes High School in Georgia. I might have said that school name wrong, and I apologize. They had climbed atop a group of these vertical, foam mats that they would use for wrestling and whatnot. Looking down into one of them, they made a horrible discovery. They laid one of the mats down, and they discovered the body of Kendrick Johnson. He was caught on the school security footage going into the gymnasium and then running across the gymnasium just moments before his death. No witnesses ever came forward. The first autopsy that was done said that he died of positional asphyxia, or basically he suffocated. And they claimed that he fell in there accidentally when trying to get one of his shoes that he had thrown in there. But a second autopsy was ordered by the family, and it ruled he died of blunt force trauma, and it was no accident. His death occurred in 2013, and to this day it is unsolved. He was only 17 years old. So like I said in the previous video, his second autopsy revealed he died of blunt force trauma, specifically to the right side of his neck and soft tissue. A third autopsy would also back this up. Unfortunately, there was no CCTV footage found focused on the area where his body was discovered, so they had no leads there. As a matter of fact, this case went cold until March of 2021. A sheriff's office in Georgia has reopened the case and wanted to look at it with a brand new set of eyes. Kendrick Johnson's family actually paid for a video that someone was selling of a confession to his murder by another student. The identity has not been revealed, and the validity of this tape has not been confirmed. The Johnson family believes that the sheriff's department knows who killed their son, but they're covering it up. And as of April 26th, this case is still unsolved. This is the case of Kendrick Johnson, and this is actually just my thoughts on it. So me personally, I feel he was murdered. So right here you can see the mat and you can see him in there. Now right now it's laying down, but he was found when it was standing up. Now I know they're probably pretty heavy, but if he had accidentally slipped in there and, got stuck, how come he couldn't just wiggle it and topple it over? Which would then give him more air and also give them an easier chance of crawling out or screaming for help. And why would he even go in it that way to begin with? If his shoes were in there, why would he not just knock the whole mat over and get the shoes out easy? And by all accounts, from what I understand, he didn't die immediately, so I have to imagine he knew he was in trouble and he should have been screaming for help. And not one person heard? It just doesn't add up to me. And if there is taped evidence of a person confessing, let's get that fucker in jail. And him justice. The case of Brandon Swanson. Right around midnight on May 14th, 2008, Brandon Swanson had actually driven his car into a ditch. He was on his way home from an end of spring semester party with some friends. Now, Brandon reports he was not injured. He tried calling a few friends, but none of them answered given how late it was. So then he calls his parents. He just wants to see if they'll come pick him up or help get his car out of the ditch. He told his parents he was near Lind, Minnesota. His parents drove out to where he said he was, but when they got to that area, he was nowhere to be found. He actually remained on the phone with them for a full 47 minutes. When his parents got there, like, you're not at all where you say you are. And at the 47-minute mark of their phone call, the parents report Brandon saying, "Oh shit," and then the call disconnects. And just like that, Brandon Swanson has never been heard from again. His parents reported him missing the following morning, and his cell phone pinged in a completely different location. So like I said at the end of part 1, Brandon's cell phone had actually pinged 25 miles away from where he said he was, near a town called Porter, which actually helped authorities locate his car, which is this vehicle here, and it was near Taunton. So if you look at the map here, Brandon said he was in Lind, which is right there, but his car was found all the way over here. His parents say that this drive for Brandon is really normal, so they're not sure why he thought he was in a place where he wasn't. His friends at the parties that he was at said he was drinking, but he wasn't anywhere near intoxicated. Now, Brandon's father said that while he was driving to meet Brandon had essentially said, "I'm going to give up, I'm going to go walk towards the lights I can see, and I think there's a bar over there, and you can just meet me at the bar parking lot." But on this walk is when his father said on the phone, Brandon said, "Oh shit," and then the call was silent for the rest of the time. It was connected, but silent, and then they never found him. Now, authorities were a little slow on the uptake to actually begin investigating this disappearance, but they believe that it was possible that Brandon slipped and fell into the Yellow Medicine River, which is near where his car was found. But they've searched the river extensively many times and has never found a body. They've also done searches by land and by air and have come up with nothing. The police have not ruled out foul play. And as of today, May 1st, 2021, Brandon has been missing for 12 years, 11 months, and 15 days. This is the most recent age progression photo they've made, what he would look like at age 31. If you have any information on this case, especially if you live in Minnesota, contact the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office in Minnesota at 507-694-1664 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children by calling 1-800-THE-LOST. And help bring Brandon Swanson back home. Hey, true crimeers, this is the failed hit, the case of Dalia Dippolito. That was gross, and she doesn't sound like that. Dalia here met her future husband, Michael Dippolito, on October 4th, 2008. After one whole fortnight, he proposed to Dalia. Rewinding back to 2001 real quick, Michael here was convicted and sentenced to 7 months in prison for a fraud operation. In 2009, Michael here was contacted by his probation officer. An anonymous tipper said he was selling steroids and ecstasy. A week after that, Michael was met by police because an anonymous tipster said he was selling cocaine from his car. 2 weeks after that, another anonymous tip. The police now find cocaine in his car. He says, "Not mine." Michael then became suspicious of his wife. You see, Dalia is a very entitled person. She's the type of person who used her looks to get whatever she wanted, and she felt she needed everything. Michael confronted her about the cocaine. She flipped her shit. Michael calmed her down. So the morning after Michael confronted Dalia, accusing her of calling in the anonymous tips about him selling cocaine, she announced she was pregnant. Don't worry, it's just a ruse. Because she's awful. Dalia here gives the old ring to one of her ex-BFs, Mike Stanley. That's 2 first names, that's cheating. Somehow Dalia here convinces Mike Stanley to call her current husband Michael and say that in order to get off of probation, Michael would have to sign over the deed to his house to Dalia so that it would just be under her name. Michael Dippolito believed it, and he did it. She then contacted another ex-boyfriend named Mohammed, and she asked him to hire a hitman to kill her husband. Mohammed went to the police. Part 3 is the actual video of what happens next.
Hey.
We're staying in here, right?
Alright, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to get some stuff out the way.
Alright, cool.
I'm gonna tell you how I'm gonna do it and when exactly it's gonna be done. Alright?
How soon can we get everything going?
Well, it's up to you.
Because I mean, I need it done like this week, but like my understanding of everything was that like, you know, how soon could you do it? And
I could do it
can we get us here?
Wednesday morning. I'm gonna think he's at work, but when he's not at work, then, you know, he gets 2 and ahead. I don't want...
No, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you see me and you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. You know, but I'm not.
You're not to have an option to change your mind. Even if you change your mind, you're not talking to him.
There's no changing, there's no, like, I'm determined
Definitely
already. I'm positive, like, 5,000% sure, like,
okay.
Around 6:30, 7 o'clock, he always walks the dog in the morning.
Okay.
So you just watched in the last part, good old humble Dalia here, setting up a contract killing to murder her husband with a person she thinks is a hitman, but is really an undercover cop. The police had already informed her husband, Michael Dippolito here, of all the unfortunate shit that just happened with her. They then escort him out of the home, and they stage the house with a whole bunch of cops and ambulances and stuff outside the home. They give loving, caring Dalia a call and say, "Get home quick, girl! Something crazy's happened." When she gets here, the cops put on their best Oscar-winning performance.
I had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired. Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed. No. Try to calm down.
Oh, they then bring her to the police station to continue on the ruse. So the police, they put on a show. They say, yada, 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 your husband's been shot in the face. And then she's like, oh, I want to see him. I'm like, what? Do I get money? Is there blood on the carpet? I don't know where that voice even came from. Dalia here gets brought to the police station. They put her in an interrogation room. You know, they say it's, just standard. They ask her stuff like, did Michael have any enemies? Yada, yada, yada. And then they bring in the undercover cop who was posing as the hitman, still pretending as if he's the hitman that they caught. And she's like, oh my god, I've never seen him before. I'll send you the money later. And then finally, out of nowhere, they just go, the jig's up, pal. Your husband's not dead. We've got you on video hiring a hitman. You're under arrest for solicitation to commit murder. And she's like, oh my god, I'll sleep with you to drop the charges.
Can you please come here?
Hey, I can't help you. Don't you understand what just happened?
What they're saying is not true.
How is that possible?
Like, I'm sitting here. It's not true. It's not possible. You would...
Dalia, I couldn't help you if I wanted to.
Like, please, I need an attorney. Can you please help me?
I heard your voice clearly. What? I don't understand.
I did not say those things. Period.
So how did they get your voice on that tape recorder?
Like, I'm limited with my time, please.
You gotta be kidding me, man. Dalia, you said it, Dalia. You hired a guy.
No, I did not say anything. Period. I didn't say anything.
I don't know how you're going to actually have the nerve to sit here and lie to me now.
That's what you're thinking about. I'm sitting here rotting and you're thinking about...
Now you start having me kill him.
So this woman is one of the most entitled women you'll ever hear of. She literally tried to tell the husband that she just tried to have murdered, that what he heard and what she said wasn't said. It's not true. It's not true. He's like, bitch, I heard you say it. It's not true. I didn't say that. That's not what I said. In that recording, he says, all right, give me the deed back to my house and I'll help your mother out. She says, no, I'm not doing that. He then says, all right, fuck off. And then she's like, why aren't you helping me? Because you just try to have me fucking whacked. And you won't give me my house back. The one you just try to have me murdered in. She's literally crazy. Anyway, in 2011, she goes to trial and is found guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder and is then sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, due to a technicality, her conviction is reversed and a retrial is ordered. You're a kumquat and I hate your guts. Thanks. So, in 2016, Dalia would have a baby while in house arrest awaiting her second trial. In 2016, her second trial began. In this trial, the prosecution was not able to use a fact that they used in the first trial. Dalia here apparently and allegedly had tried to poison Michael before. So since the second trial was not allowed to have that in there, the jury was hung. Oof, I want to meet those guys, you know what I mean? Anyway, it was a hung jury. Which means she had to go on a third trial. She goes on trial for the third time in 2017. She is once again found guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and she is now sentenced to 16 years in prison. With no possibility of parole, she will not be released from prison until she's 50 years old. You can maybe use your good looks, I guess, in prison. So today I thought we would talk about the popular Netflix docuseries The Staircase. On December 9th, 2001, around 2:40 in the morning, author Michael Peterson here called the police. He had found his wife Kathleen at the bottom of their staircase, unconscious, claiming that she must have fallen down the stairs 15-20, he doesn't know, after consuming alcohol and Valium. Trigger warning, the next picture I'm going to show you guys is a blurred out image of her body and there is blood in the image. So if you don't want to see that, you can look away. So this is how she was found at the bottom of the stairs. And she was obviously pronounced dead at the scene. At her autopsy, these are a representation of the wounds she had on her head. The autopsy would also show that her blood alcohol level was 0.07%. So Kathleen Peterson had been found dead at the bottom of her staircase. Her husband, Michael Peterson, this fella, was the only other person there at the residence. World-renowned forensic experts had actually been there to examine the scene, and they said that the blood spatter at the bottom of the staircase was consistent with a fall. However, people from the police department directly would say, this is false, this is inconsistent with a fall down a staircase. I'm covering up her image here, but there is a lot of blood here at the bottom of the staircase. You can kind of see it down there. The medical examiner would say that she died from the lacerations found on her skull, pictured there. Medical examiners would say that these are inconsistent with a fall down a staircase. So she declared that her death was via homicide. And her husband, Michael Peterson, was arrested and charged with her murder, claiming that he struck her with a blunt instrument and staged her body. So Michael Peterson finds his wife dead at the bottom of a staircase. Not every day you see that. Well, except if you're Michael Peterson. You see, because in 1985 in Germany, Michael Peterson would also be the last person to see Elizabeth Ratliff alive. Where was she found, you might wonder? The bottom of a staircase, blood everywhere, also with lacerations to her head. Her death was ruled an accident. Well, that's just a little kind of suspicious, don't you think? 2 women in his life, both died at the bottom of a staircase. I mean, come on. Now, the prosecution would end up using this case not to suggest Michael Peterson killed her, but to suggest that Michael Peterson would be able to use this incident to know how to fake Kathleen's death, which I agree. I also think he killed her. What do you guys think about this one? Now, the prosecution would argue that Michael Peterson beat his wife to death with a blowpoke. To be honest with you, before this show, I had no fucking clue what a blowpoke was, and quite honestly, I still don't. But the tip of the blowpoke... sounds like what I did at the gay club bathroom last night, you know what I mean? Hey bud, what's your fucking problem, man? Fuck. But that this would be consistent with the wounds on her head. Now, Michael Peterson's attorney, he's a pretty cool dude. But he, and this will be a hoot, I promise. This wasn't shown in the docuseries, but they suggested that it's possible that a fucking owl clawed her head, which would be consistent with that middle wound there. Now, no one heard screaming. And I don't know about you, but if I'm getting attacked by a fucking owl, I'm screaming and firing fucking bazookas and shit. That's terrifying. I imagine Netflix cut this from the show because it's fucking stupid. So, Captain Not a Fan of Steps here would be found guilty of murder in 2003 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2010, long story short, his defense team will request a new trial because one of the principal witnesses for the initial case had did some shady shit and the prosecution may have withheld some stuff from the defense. While awaiting a new trial, he was released into house arrest in 2011, and in 2014, he would end up signing an Alford plea, which means he claims he's innocent but knows he will be found guilty based on evidence. It's a stupid fucking thing, and he would be released, and is roaming free to this day. There is a scripted television series coming out this year about this case, and finally, my opinion, he fucking killed her. There is way too much blood at the bottom of those stairs. Her injuries, come on. This fucking guy is guilty as shit. And there you have it.